All right, we've seen the artificial intelligence buttons, and they're great. Imperfect, but they're great. Now, I specifically did not show you how to modify those great artificial selections, artificial in that they're given by the computer, because you need to learn these tools next. The object tool, the brush tool, and the various others. But this time I'm going to walk you through some of the user interface or the user intelligence tools. Let's start with the object tool. We're going to need the object tool. We're going to need the object tool in order to modify the artificial intelligence tools. Let's take a couple of examples here. Now, if I were to try to select M, my subject, well, I have a pretty good guess what the computer's going to do. But where is the artificial intelligence button? There isn't one. For the ball, there isn't one, right? So I sneak down. Now I'm in the user intelligence fields. Here we go. Select the object. And it's waiting, watch, for me. I've got a brush. And I'm just going to hover and click or click and drag. I'll click. That brush is big enough to cover the ball. And when I let go, bang. That's incredible. Now, that's a mixture of the artificial intelligence with your intelligence. Let's undo that. Let's try something else. I'm going to select a new selection. Get used to this rhythm, an object. My same brush, it's quite large, but I'm going to start here on this pole and drag up. Now it's way too big for that pole, but let's see what happens. Wow, it figured it out. So you don't have to be good, you just have to be close. Now you may have noticed that I didn't say add another object, because what's marvelous about the object selection tool is that it assumes that you're adding and adding and adding automatically. So if I were to continue to click on the ball, I would get the poles and the ball. If I were to click across the top of the net, let's see what it would think, because it's not an entire net. Look at that. Do you see it skipped every little piece of netting? That blows my mind. Let me continue to draw. Then I'm just giving it a clue of what I'm looking for here. You see that net. Now look how rough my selection was. It's mind-blowing, honestly. Now it missed a little bit of net here. Command plus, plus, plus. But I'm going to click and drag, assuming it's going to add the blue that it missed. Perfect. I've got pretty much that entire fence, or I should say net outline selected, but I've got a bit of her head and a bit of whatever this is out here. So here's another trick with the object tool. As you click, you know it assumes that you're adding. But if you alt click or option click, it assumes you're subtracting. So I'm saying subtract whatever you saw there, subtract, click, and that. I'm waiting, and that, I'm just clicking and dragging with the alt key or the option key down to deselect. It still isn't perfect, but it's darn good. There it is. More as we continue to work. Look at my mask panel, and it says mask 6, which I might redefine as net edges, is made up of so many little components of objects, aren't there? And if I were on any one of those components and I hit the letter X, it would exchange only that component, X. It's flip-flopping, X, only that component. But we learned in the previous video, I can option X. And in that case, it inverts the entire group. The name, the major name, and every indented addition will flip-flop. Wow, that was Option or Alt X to invert an entire group of selections. If you're just on one component, let me find another obvious component there. If you're just on one component and you do X, it only flips that component, that sub selection, that addition or subtraction. X, X. It's Option or Alt X that flips the entire, inverts the entire selection group. That's helpful. You'll see, we'll show you some more examples as we continue to work. Next image. It comes to my mind that if I go to the mask and I say select an object and I sneak over a lens and click, and it's going to continue to add, isn't it? Click. You see what it did. Now, I'm going to hold the Alt key, which is subtract, and say, not this area, please, and not this area, please. It thought the eyebrows, oops, were a part of that area. It's not there. So I'm just using that Alt key to quickly deselect or select. Without it, it's going to try its best to add. I'm looking at my overlay while I do this, so it makes it easy for you to see what I've got. The art in these images is more and more complicated. Let's take a little look. Mask, create an object. Now notice how familiar I am now. When I open my document, if I already have masks, I just quickly go and click on the plus sign. If I don't have masks, I click the object pull down, right? I don't have any masks in this image. I just click that object button there. I'm just comfortable. No matter what I'm presented with, I know where to look. What do I want? I want this grassy area, so I'm going to click and drag. See if it'll sort it out for me. Wow, it did. I want this building in addition. You see now when I say in addition, it's going to combine the two into one mask group. Now, should you not want that to happen, then just go ahead and ask for another new object mask. It will create a second group. So maybe I want buildings aside from the grassy area. Nice. Well, let's go ahead and add this big building too while we're at it. Now, look what I'm not doing. I'm not filling the object in. I'm only showing it the boundaries. That's all that I have to do. That's all that's necessary, is just show it the boundaries. Now, if you happen to fill it, fill it. Look at all these buildings being added. It's marvelous. One more building. Boom. Oh, here's one on the side. I missed it. Oh, unable to find an object in that photo. Okay, well, let's give it a go. Again, not perfect, but so useful. Let's try this. This is extremely complex, I think, because of so many people. Look how busy it is, right? The bride and the groom running out, having confetti thrown upon them and so on. It's a real mess. Good luck to me. Great example of where my object selection user intelligence helps save the day. What I'd like is him and her, and I'm just surrounding generally as best I can figure. Oh, don't get that arm. No. But down here and around, I'm just generally getting the couple. I'm already impressed. Hey, you missed the folder in his elbow and his arm and his hand. I keep clicking, it adds. What's this? Add it. What's this? Add it. Pretty great. Alt key, subtract, whatever this is. Subtract that. Not bad, not bad. I can live with that. I'm going to go ahead and add that piece of tie. It's taking time, you see, but okay, I'm pretty good. It looks like I've gone as far as I can go. I have a mask with an entire grouping of little objects all added together. What I'd like to do is to select everything except the couple. What am I going to do? I'd like to select the opposite of the couple. Will I select X? I could, but it will only invert the one sub-object. So I'll Alt X or Option X. There it is, everything but them. Why would I care to do that? Maybe I just want to darken everyone else and make them more prominent. I am always so fascinated when I see this work. Let's try another. This time I'm going to teach you selecting with a brush. Now, I find I don't select so much with the brush as I use the brush, listen now, to modify my selections. The brush itself is in fact a mask maker. M, that's where it is. And I can sneak up and ask for one. Now, I'm going to skip over people just for now because it is so amazing, mind-boggling, and very different than the others. I'm going to have a separate video for it, a bonus video upcoming. But I'm going down to the brush tool. And the brush tool, you might see, I'll go back, the brush tool's shortcut makes no sense. It's K. You know, brush. What is this? K for brush. Here's why. Well, let's pretend we know why. It's because the brush is the most killer tool. It's the killer tool of killer tools. Just pretend that K stands for killer tool. That's what it means. Now, in both Lightroom and Bridge, Camera Raw, K is the brush shortcut. Now, they don't often use the same keyboard shortcuts, to my great dismay, but this is one that they share. The brush is K for killer tool. I don't have to come up here and choose it. I could just hit K and receive it. We're working with the brush. I want you to pause, look at your notes, make a little separate area for brush. Is the brush tool a mask maker? Yes. But I want you to set a preference. I want you to set a preference for your brush. Follow me. I've selected a brush. Select a brush, K. Got it. Then look over here and there are some brush options. And I find that the greatest angst caused to my students is this flow and this density set of sliders here. Whatever you do, set your flow and your density to 100%. Otherwise, it just doesn't quite behave. Listen, if you don't want 100% of what brush you wipe, the best and most precise way to deal with that is to edit the sliders down below, but not here. So please, set your brush to flow, density at 100% each. You'll thank me later, I pray. That's it. Something else about the brush. I showed you my mouse earlier and how I used it to select my brush size for my object tool. Now I'm just pushing my finger up and down on my trackpad or up and down on my track mouse, right? If I do it on if I just move it around, I'm not getting anything, but I'm on a special mouse. You may not have a special mouse. Most of us wouldn't. And so it's this shortcut. Look at your keyboard. To the right of the letter P for perfect. And you see two bracket keys. The left bracket and the right bracket make your brush larger or smaller. Smaller or larger, actually, in that order. The left bracket is smaller. The right bracket is bigger. I don't have to remember that. I just try one or the other. So that's changing my brush size without a special mouse. If I add the Shift key to that behavior, on the brush, it changes something called the feather. The edge will be harder, harsher, or softer. And you're going to see, if you look carefully, above flow and density, the word feather. And that's what's changing when you're holding the Shift key, the feather of the edge. And that's the best shortcut for that. Left and right bracket on their own to change the brush size. Shift left and right bracket to change the brush edge. I'm going to paint a mask. I might look at this area here where the very, very bright red light is hopping, right? And I'm going to click and drag, and you can see that that area is the area softly that I'm painting over. Now, nothing's happening there yet. I've just laid out a mask. Now, let's do it. I grab my exposure, and I start pulling, you see. And now it has impact, exposure impact in this case, for that area. Preview. I'm hitting the letter P, before and after. Now, what does that remind you of in Photoshop? When you could click and drag and darken a particular area. What does that remind you of in Photoshop? That's right. That's the burn tool. You see, the killer tool in Camera Raw is both the dodge and the burn tool. Well, how does it know? Well, it's wherever you dial your exposure. You want to dodge, you bring it up. You want to burn, you dial it down. And it's infinitely re-accessible because it's non-destructive. So the killer tool is, already we've learned, a dodge and a burn tool. Let's sneak over here. We saw this image in the previous bonus video. Mask. Please give me a mask of my subjects. Now, I didn't I, in the previous video? And there it is. It's automatically saved. I'm going to double click on mask 5 and just call it them. If I could spell. It's them. And I click the word them, and they will be highlighted. Oh, it's not actually them, is it? It's the opposite of them. I can hit X. And now it truly is them. I inverted. And I did it with the letter X, as I've been telling you. But look, there are 3 dots. And in there you could say, invert it. Now this says invert the mask, and that is Option or Alt X. That means invert everything in the mask, the entire group. Entire group. In this case, it's the same because I don't have any sub-items other than just the subject. There aren't multiple sub-items. So X is working just as well as Option or Alt X. They, in this case, would be the same thing. If you're one of those folks that bucks against learning keyboard shortcuts, and you really want to try to discipline yourself to learn a few, you could just hover and go to the 3 dots and get that there. Another place to get it. Now remember, this one says Option X or Alt X, the entire mask group. But if you're on just one subject, there's also an invert right there. That's plain old X. I'm going to let you get a look at it. Right now, like I say, they appear to be doing the same thing. All right, a little bit of fun. I have them. But I don't want them, I want one of them. So I'm going to grab them, sneak over to the 3 dots and say, will you please duplicate them? Give me an exact replica of them. Now notice I could also duplicate and invert. Duplicate it and hit X is what I'm asking for here. Actually, it's duplicate and hit Option X or Alt X. But I'm going to say, just duplicate them, please. I have a copy, them copy it, sweetly typed for me. All right, you're going to see your first mod, your first modification. I'm going to subtract one of them. Subtract one of them using what? Using this particular user intelligence tool, the brush. In fact, I'm going to subtract one of them. Now, when you have a mask, it's a selection. Check. Same in Photoshop. A mask is a selection. Check. And remember back in Photoshop, if we had a selection, maybe the dancing ants, and you wanted to subtract part of it, you could hold the Option key, the Alt key on the PC, and you could subtract part of it. The Option key was subtract. The Shift key was add. Well, look over at my brush. In the mask panel, since I said subtract using the killer tool, it says, well, I'll give you a shortcut for that. Option, as it always is. Option K, subtract with the brush, subtract with the killer tool. Plain K, a moment ago, minutes ago, gave me a new brush mask. But if I already have any mask, and I Option K, it says subtract with a brush. What would you like to subtract? Well, I like to subtract her. Careful, there we go. I'm going to subtract her. And now I'm going to change the name of them copy to wifey. I now have her. Let's go back to them. I could go to them. Let's duplicate them. Them copy to, subtract. I forgot the keyboard shortcut. Here I am going up to say subtract with my brush. We'll subtract her. I've isolated by modifying using a brush. That's sis. And notice these will be saved. They are in there. The masks themselves are already saved. There's one. I'm just going to hover now. I'm hovering, sis. I'm not clicking. There's them. I don't know what the rest of these are, but there it is. And I can go back in time. When I hit done at the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, these will have been saved. Let's grab them. And I'm going to brighten them. They both would appreciate it if, now watch me very carefully. This is so cool. Both of them. We're modifying. We're growing up now. We're maturing as super mask makers. I'm going to duplicate them. I'm going to subtract with a brush here. On both of them, I'm subtracting their bodies. I'm leaving myself with their faces, ultimately. And I'm just rough cutting here, okay? Now, I could always change my brush edge. And softly, I'm subtracting. Oop! But if I hold the Alt key during subtraction mode, it turns into add. So I can softly re-add on those edges without it. The Alt key or the Option key always flip-flops the behavior. If you're adding, it will subtract temporarily. If you're subtracting, it will add temporarily. Now, what is this mask? What would we call this mask if you had to name it? Their faces? I'm going to call it their faces, and please don't judge me. Please don't judge me, but I have found that I get more love when I do something to faces like, and now I'm going to hide my overlay. I'm going to hit the letter Y and hide my overlay. Their faces are selected. But I find that every morning, my wife and my sister both wake up and they spend some great amount of time, in my estimation, covering up details in their faces. They cover up details. I'm a guy. If I got a scar, I want to see it. It's detail. But they don't. And so I'm going to turn down, dial down some of the details in that area. Texture slider dials down detail. Clarity dials down detail. A little dab will do me. Sharpness dials down detail. I've just shown you the 3 detail sliders. Texture is overall details, pock marks, wrinkles, freckles, real details all over. Clarity is details in the middle tones. Flesh is midtone. So clarity is a real midtone or a real flesh detail eliminator. Now if I go to the right, or enhancer, but sharpness is the detail enhancer in the darks and the brights, the whites and the blacks on either end. So with clarity and sharpness, I can get the full range, but I'm doing them in varying different amounts. And then the texture slider is an overall texture. There it is. I'm going to hit the letter P. P, before and after. But I find I get more love from the one on the right if I help her dial down texture on her face. She looks over my shoulder and she says, "Oh, did you do anything to that photo? Honey, honey, you know how beautiful you are." Now, I don't lie to my wife. We have a deal. But this, she appreciates. These little flesh-colored lies, she appreciates. I'll create a new brush. I'm going to hit the letter K. Brand new brush. Let's push on arms, let's just say, which may need a different amount compared to the face. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of your scroll bar, you'll see that there's a setting there that says reset the sliders automatically. Every time I use it and let go, it resets all my sliders to 0. Now, I don't particularly care for that feature, so I've unchecked it. Because if I've already dialed my texture down, and my clarity down a little bit, and my sharpness down a little bit, I kind of appreciate that it remembers and retains that when the next brush is created. But I realize I might be the oddball here. Some people appreciate it resetting between every stroke. I don't. I scroll to the bottom if you don't and uncheck that. Now what I do is if I want it to reset, I use a little keyboard shortcut. It's Command-Option-R for reset, but you'll also see that you have a little Reset Mask Adjustments button right there. Just take my mask adjustments back in time. Now earlier, previous video, we saw that that was a way to wipe out all the masks. In the mask panel, it wipes out all the masks. But down by the sliders, it only resets your slider. Let me set my sliders wildly here. And you'll see that if I hit that arrow, it just resets the sliders. So that's the manual way to reset your sliders, but only when you want to. Don't have it do it in between every time, just reset it. Or you can Control-Alt-R on the PC or Command-Option-R on the Mac to reset. Anytime you want to. Those, I understand, are high-end details, but the more you watch the video, the more you'll be ready to absorb the next extra pieces of precision detail working on your masks. People will think that you are a magician, when in fact, you just know your program inside and out. It doesn't happen with the first view, does it? It may happen with watching once, taking good notes, reading your notes over and over, watching it again, making sure the notes are absorbed. But you have these, remember, you have these for life. You have them for life. Send me your questions. I can't wait to answer your questions, maybe even with your images, on the next Yours Day video. The next bonus video is coming right up, but take a look at these notes first before you continue. See you soon.